Welcome back to Plague Scythe Studios, everyone. A few weeks ago, we took a look at the AX8 to make a basic heavy metal bass guitar patch. And it wasn't but a few weeks later that Quantum firmware 9.02, at least the beta version, and recently the full release, firmware came out for the AX8, and that included a new drive pedal, a bass drive pedal at that, which is pretty cool. That is the Darkglass Microtubes B7K. And for those of you out there that aren't real bass guitarists either, that is a phenomenal preamp pedal that a lot of big names in bass guitar use. If I were a real bass guitarist, the B7K would certainly be in my drive pedal collection. It's not really a microtube pedal though. It's actually a mixture of CMOS and FET if I understand correctly, but however they do it, it sounds phenomenal. It sounds super organic. You can get anywhere from a nice round natural bass tone to super cutting, jab through any modern metal mix while retaining a lot of bottom end. Now, the bass guitar side of things on Fractal Audio products could certainly still use a little bit more love, but I'm really happy that they added what I think to be one of the coolest drive pedals out there for bass guitar. And because of that, I've been playing with it a lot the past few days. And in this video, I'll show you how I've added it to my current heavy metal bass guitar patches and how you can use it in the future as well. So let's hop into AX8. If you remember the video from a few weeks back, the signal chain in this particular preset is quite a bit more simplified than our last one. That's because on the last video, we had a split signal going from one side being distorted, the other side being a relatively clean but thumpy bass sound. And that's a common technique that a lot of bass players use both recording and live. On this particular patch, because of this B7K drive model, you're actually able to get that in one signal chain. And I technically could have done the same thing because of the mix knob that lies in these drive blocks, as you'll see here. But this is a real feature on the actual pedal, and this is something that I would use, and I know some people do. So we're going to start off here. Here is my clean bass sound. I have the preamp on the bass itself. I have both pickups selected. They're fully open, but I don't have any of the EQ sculpting the sound. So this is just a basically clean pickups going to just a little bit of a preamp, but without any particular boost. So that's the clean bass guitar on its own. And we'll throw on the pedal here. And there's a few ways you can use this pedal. There's actually a lot of ways you can use this pedal in real life. So the way I have it here, I want to demonstrate all three of the use cases that I think are useful. First is direct, which we're doing here. Second is direct with a cabinet sound, which I think is very useful. And then with a real amp and cabinet, which is the way I would use it personally for 99% of stuff, although it does sound good in all ways. Almost knocked over my water there, but close call. Anyway, so this is what the B7K would sound like direct. So already not a bad gritty bass sound there, at least with the preset as it is. Definitely beats a lot of the freeware software and that sort of stuff. But with tweaking this a little bit, I'm sure we can get something even better. So the cool thing about this model is it mimics basically everything on the pedal. Sometimes with these Fractal Audio models, they have to approximate some things, or they have to leave one switch in a neutral position and tell you to go adjust it somewhere else. But it's pretty close. The only thing that isn't 100% accurate is these low cuts and high cuts, but it's actually better in this incarnation than the real pedal, because this would be like the attack switch, this would be the grunt switch, and I think you only have 3 or 4 options for each one of those. So instead we get to choose on the dot where we want our low cut and high cut. I believe the vanilla settings are 200 all the way up to 20,000 hertz. We'll leave it at that for now. I see a lot of bass players tweaking these values to below 0 or below noon. I'm assuming that translates the same way on this pedal as it does, or at least on this virtual pedal as it does in real life. And drive and tone we'll just have to play with as we see fit. Now the mix knob is what I was referring to earlier. This is your blend knob on the actual pedal itself. And the cool thing about this is that 0% on the real pedal is your full, just clean bass sound, and 100% is the pedal 100%, and then between the two is a mixture of the two. So you actually are able to, retain some of your original bass tone coming through, which is exactly what I want for this type of split signal sound I have going on. Now, I'm not sure if this is the case on the real pedal itself, but in the Fractal model, the EQ does affect the mixed version of this. So if you can hear, this doesn't sound the same as if you bypassed it. So you can hear that the pedal at 0% mix is still different from the completely bypassed pedal. But to me, that's really useful because you get a little bit of sculpting options even on your quote-unquote clean sound. And that could be useful, especially if you don't have a preamp built on your actual bass guitar. So let's play a little bit more with the drive and tone and these low cut and high cut, see what we can get on the direct sound before we go to the speaker cabinet and all that good stuff. So we'll crank this a little bit. You can definitely get some usable results out of this preamp pedal and about any other preamp pedal that's worth its salt on its own, but to me, the magic really starts to happen when you start adding cabinets and real bass amps. So here we're going to be using a 8x10 Ampeg SVT, one of the best bass cabinets out there in my opinion, and see what that does for us. Of course, you're free to add whatever bass impulse response that you like, whether it be in the box on this unit or otherwise if you add it yourself. But I definitely prefer to run this pedal if I want to do it this way with a impulse response, because you just get a lot more of that natural roundness to the bass guitar that I think otherwise makes it stick out like a sore thumb in a mix. You can make it work, but I'm not a huge fan of direct bass sounds for my kind of stuff. So this works really well. And of course you can do the same thing we did earlier, adjusting the mix and high cut, low cut, all that good stuff to bring out more parts of the clean or more part of the distorted part of the bass. But here is my favorite thing, is throwing in a real amplifier. We're once again using the Mesa Boogie 400 amp model, number 1, which has either has or doesn't have some type of mid shifting gauge. I can't remember whichever way that is, but this is the one I prefer. Again, you can use the Ampeg stuff. You can use the 59 Bassman. I think there's a 65. Yeah, there's all kinds of good stuff in here, but this is one of my favorite bass amp models, and here is what this does with and without. Like I just did here, you don't even need to use this as a real drive pedal. You can kind of just use it as an EQ to shape your bass guitar before it goes into your amplifier if you want a different kind of clean or just a touch of dirt. I think this is a really good way to do it. But where it shines is that blend knob or the mix knob here that allows you to separate those two different signals depending on how much of each side you want. So we'll play around with this a bit, see if we can't dial in something a bit more meaty, a bit more modern. So this right here is what would be the most common use case for me personally, is using the Darkglass stuff as a combination between a preamp and an EQ and a drive pedal, all those things in one package. And that's why I love the Darkglass products in general. They retain the tube organics while acting as a little bit of everything for a bass guitar. And as someone who doesn't play bass guitar regularly, just does it for recording and stuff, having all of that in one simple package is really cool. And there's nothing stopping you from, bridging off over here and putting the amp here or another, drive pedal like a FET boost if you want to sculpt it further, or throwing an EQ, before or after the drive pedal if you want to, do some different stuff with the frequencies going into your amp, or if you just want to throw it directly into a cabinet. Do whatever you want. I know that, like Dick Lovergan on the most recent Meshuggah tours has been using that and some Aguilar products, but going straight into front of house, and it sounded freaking phenomenal when I saw them live. So there's basically endless possibilities of how you can use this thing, but to me, what I use it for is saving that bridge as using it as a kind of a fork in the road for having both my clean and distorted bass tones go through a real bass amp. And this is probably what the signal chain is going to look like for some of my not as bone crushing heavy stuff. But you can certainly, crank up the drive and do some EQ and sculpting before and after, and certainly get a modern tone, more modern tone than even we achieved here out of it. So that's my simple take on this. You are more than welcome to download this and the previous bass patch and mix and match how you'd like to. And I'll probably be throwing this pedal in all my other bass patches over the next coming days because I really, really like the thing. And really happy that, again, Fractal is throwing a little bit more love towards the bass players on the AX8 and the Axe effects, and hopefully they will continue to do the same in the near future. So yeah, that's it for this video. If you like that, be sure to let me know. Any questions, comments, do leave them below as always, and hopefully we'll be back with more bass guitar stuff as it gets added. And hopefully I won't make a video like a week before the new toys come out, but that's how it goes. So thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.